Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of World of Oil Derivatives. I'm Greg Newman, the Chief Executive of Onyx Capital Group. This is a very different episode away from the markets, but still relevant, and I think you'll see why. So I'm with Amy Andrew. She's a professional boxer. Remind me of the division, sorry.
Featherweight.
Featherweight division. 4-0 professional boxer and English champion. Is that the amateur English champion? How do you define that?
Yes, like the English champion for amateur boxing, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Amy's with us to talk about her journey. Plenty of things I wanted to get stuck into. But Amy, first of all, thanks a lot for coming. I know you got busy with your...
Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to come and be in the office and kind of see what you guys are doing and everything. So yeah.
Different, but I always think there's similarities, and that's why I can't wait to get into.
Yeah.
So again, for more context for listeners, Onyx have been sponsoring Amy on a couple of different things. The latest one on your journey for becoming a New Zealand champion, and trying to go to the Olympic boxing, but we'll get into that.
We will.
But in general, great for people to hear about, some kind of professionalism in any sport or any division, but also, let's be honest, right? You've had it pretty tough. You've made drastic changes in your life to do what you do now. You did become New Zealand champion while having practically a newborn, right? Or not even a years old.
Yeah.
1 year old.
Yeah.
And all the challenges that represents. So, I mean, I think the one thing about you is that you're always willing to speak candidly, and I think people will enjoy listening about that.
That's nice of you. Yeah, I think there's always millions of reasons not to do stuff.
Yeah.
And so kind of if you count them, then you probably wouldn't do anything. So it's been exciting. But
so that's the first thing, right? Like, I always found interesting about you, and again, for more context, I have known Amy for a long time, and it's the drastic change from financial journalism, coming out of university, being a journalist, financial journalism until you're about 30 years old, and then switching to boxing. So just talk us through that.
My dad was not thrilled. It's like, I thought you were in a stable career. What is going on? My mum and dad are a bit confused about the whole thing. But I think I was a journalist for maybe about 10 years and really loved it. It was an amazing career to have, and learnt loads of things from it. But I guess it wasn't 100% me. Like, I went to a very academic school and, went to university and kind of did all the things I sort of felt like I was meant to do. But really, when I found boxing, I really fell in love with it. And I guess that kind of more traditional path isn't so much me. So
but you've been doing it for quite some time. So
yeah, exactly.
Was there an element of, because I know that you'd always tried different physical things, right? You did a marathon when you never really ran before, right? As in, that wasn't a thing for you, right? So you decided to do that. Yeah. But there's plenty of other things you did.
Yeah, snowboarding, all different things. So I love sport. I've always done loads of sport. I'm really competitive. So anything with like any kind of competitive element, I was like, brilliant, get me in there. But with journalism, it is quite a boozy lifestyle. And I think where I used to do a lot of sport when I was younger, I was trying to kind of find something that kept me in more of a routine. With the running, you're like, run, and then you're like, oh, I can't bother to get up, or whatever. And then you just run the marathon, but you're like, okay, I could have done better, but whatever, I wanted to go out. And then with boxing, it's not like that at all, because if you don't get, as you know, because you're very good at boxing yourself, don't laugh, you are. And you train really hard, but if you don't go up and go for that run, if you are like overweight, if you're not like on it, then someone's going to punch you in the face. So
yeah, no, of course. But it's still that, I mean, if you don't mind me saying, do you think you were kind of unhappy during that period? Because again, I want to be clear, like it was very much, you were doing a very typical like job, as in great job, but at the same time, it's not like you were an ex-professional who stopped for a bit and then came back. You genuinely were like an everyday person, right? Doing this work and work. And then so you were doing sport on the side as much as you could, I guess.
Yeah.
And then was there this itch that you couldn't scratch basically by being in a full-time job that wasn't active?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. But I also feel like I didn't realize how much there was that side to me until I started boxing. So when I first started, it was just like the charity boxing fights. So
how did this first start?
Just because of I didn't get around to training properly for all these various things that I was signing up to, and then I did boxing, and then it was
just like a class, or
so I signed up to a fight actually. So it was like an 8-week training, and then you do like a charity fight at the end of it. All your friends and family come, and it's just like you kind of throw rubbish punches at each other, and then everyone like is drunk and like cheers for you, and then you finish the end and it's brilliant. So it was really good, and I trained really hard, and I really fell in love with boxing because it's this very bizarre sort of a sport, but also just, you get in there and who punches each other? It's just really like not
primal.
Yeah. And it's so directly competitive, and there's so many different things to it. I think with boxing, it's like business, or like with loads of different things, you don't have to be good at one thing. So you can be, some people can be fast, some people can be strong, some people can be like really fit. So whatever it is that your thing is that you're good at, you try and make that the best so you can beat someone else's really good thing. So it's very technical, and it's just very like, you're in
How
there.
did you know you had a knack for it?
Just because I think after that first one, so I had to fight somebody who was like 20 kg heavier than me. And
Jeez.
yeah, because it was really hard at that time to get other girls. So we were both like, let's just fight each other, whatever. And then I beat her, and then I like had the itch to like go out and get glory. So I did more, and then
And then what did you speak to someone about what the path was, or you didn't worry about it, you just
no? So then I started amateur boxing, which is Olympic style boxing, because basically there were no girls that were really doing it, and there were quite a few girls at this club. So I went along to it, and then just kind of I was working full time still, so I found like time around boxing, work to do boxing, and then I just ended up doing more and more kind of, and then I'd be out on lunch breaks and after work and before work, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna, and then I started winning a lot of competitions with the boxing, and it just kind of became something that I think I realized that I could be really successful in.
It's amazing. So and you made that jump, right? You made that big courageous jump to say, I'm full-time going to do this.
Yes.
And I guess the way you were envisaging kind of funding your life was doing boxing classes and things like that as well, right?
Yeah.
And you did it. I mean, that shouldn't be underestimated, right? That big, huge step. And I think a lot of people could say in their 20s that they did that, and that's quite exciting and all that. But to leave a really comfortable career and do that must have felt hugely daunting.
It was tough, but it's also, as I said, I'm really competitive. Like I try and find ways to make whatever I want to happen. So I was like, oh, if I just like quit my job and do this, I could do this. And then just like chased it rather than kind of, I think afterwards I was like, wow, I literally have no money. Why did I do this? And things like that. But I think, again, if you just kind of question things, I mean, obviously to a certain extent you have to question things and not be an idiot. But like, if you really want something, I was training all the time. I was exhausted. I couldn't balance doing the career and boxing as well. So
this is one of the first things I can see that overlap with what we do, or anyone does in an office environment that are really thriving. It's like the working hard thing. Like it clearly wasn't an effort for you to work really hard at boxing.
Yeah.
All those like training sessions, of course, but then eating right, the runs, all that around it.
Yeah.
That just didn't feel like work to you, I'm assuming, right? And it all consuming.
Yeah, it's I think that I just absolutely love sparring. I think it's amazing. It's really fun. Obviously the runs and the sprints and all of those things are hard work, but then I feel like if it's for something that you really want, then doing after you've done the horrible track work, you're like, okay, well now I know that I'm fit enough to go and do that fight, or kind of. You have, the process is tough, but it's you can see where it's taking you. You can notice your changes in fitness and things like that.
100%. But it's that enjoyment, as in going from financial journalism, and I'm sure you work very hard, right? You're good at your job and everything like that, but it must have gone up a level. And I saw you go up a massive level because you're like, no, this is what I genuinely love to do.
Yeah.
So it's not work. I'm just working all the time because I love it.
Yeah.
And if you find that, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing, is that when you talk about it as work, I kind of don't see it as work almost.
I knew you'd say that, but that's the thing I'm trying to communicate to the guys sometimes. Like I feel that way.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that way, because it's not about, I'm getting up and I've got to get in by 7 a.m. and I've got to do these hours. It's like, no, I want to wake up and do what I do for a living.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. And I think it's really lucky that I feel like a lot of people don't really feel like that. So it's lucky that I guess both of us have found something that we really...
Sure, but that's the thing. When you say lucky, like I've had this debate a few times lately about luck. It's well, if you put yourself out there though, and you do try things and you have the courage and you don't let insecurity get in the way, or at least, everyone has insecurities, but not letting it push you down and
I also feel like with that as well, is that everybody else has opinions why you shouldn't do things, because I think, maybe a lot of people are not happy in their jobs, or there's things that they would like to change but maybe don't change, and that's totally fine for whatever reason, because some people aren't able to. But I think that when I was like, I want to do this, people are like, oh, you're a bit old, you're a girl, do you not want to like get married, like do you want to like are you sure this is like, is this a proper career, all these things. So everyone kind of has opinions on why you shouldn't do it, and then it's very
but they don't just have opinions, right? They have like very it goes beyond opinions to, they don't want you to do it, I feel, because it's like it's going to make them feel bad about not trying something or experimenting.
Because
definitely. What if you become successful?
And I think the difficult thing as well is it's often people that are really close to you, because they it's not even like they mean it in a mean way, they're kind of trying to look out for you. So to then take that and be like, do you know what, I appreciate what you're saying, but that's not right for me, like I need to go and do this because I know that I can be successful. But then it's quite hard to say that to people that that are close to you as well. So
well, I just think the courage is inspiring. It's really inspiring. I mean, people say things like, it's not about the money, or I've had interviews like that. Like, look, it's not really about the money, it's this. And then when they come and join, it's all about the money. And that's all they ever talk about. So I think people who really live that kind of, I will risk it all to try something, to live life. It's amazingly inspiring. And the other side of fear in that respect is an amazing feeling.
But you make it look so easy, because I feel like you're just doing all of those things, but it's not even like an issue. You're just successful and you're doing amazingly.
But remember, but when we were young, like as in early 20s, like it was very, very tough. Right? I mean, I went through, and we could talk about failures, and I definitely want to talk about failures, and we can go through that. But like, I think a lot of the time with people like yourself and what Onyx is doing now, it's so easy to critique it as it looks now. But it's the journey to get there. Not at all. It's easy, right? And I think I really resonate when you say people having their opinions. And if you let that drive you, like you are basically their slave, right? You're slave to people's opinions, and it's just, you're never going to have a happy life. So it was always that, in my opinion. So it was always my belief that if I don't try this, then I'll never know.
And
absolutely.
Then what?
I know this is going to sound really left field, but do you remember, so I know Amy's brother very, very well. We're friends from school all the way.
They're
from
like
4 years old.
Absolute terror team.
But we were in Guys and Dolls together, like our first musical.
Absolutely fantastic.
So it's like 12.
What a performance.
So 12 years old. And I promise you, it really feels to me, what we're talking about, for me at least, went back to that time, because when you're in a school play, in your final year, you have to do a school play.
Okay.
And I was like, I know where this is going. We're all going to not want to do it. We're too cool. And then we're going to end up being like a tree or something on the corner. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, if we're going to have to do this, I might. So I went for audition for like the main part. Didn't get it, but got like the second main part. And it was really fun, blew people away because no one knew I could sing or whatever. And it was just like, whatever. It was a small thing, but it made such a difference, because it was like, just by trying something and potentially failing, like what's the worst case? And
you really achieved. I think you was really good. So
well done. It's just so funny though, because it was being so young and doing that. If it kind of set me up, I feel always craving that next. So that, I guess that's my question. Do you resonate with that one?
Absolutely.
And two, do you think, when did you start making these experiments in your life?
So I think I've always been driven by wanting to kind of be successful, and I'm very competitive. So I don't know exactly, but I think the biggest thing for me was when I won when I got asked to box for England. I never ever expected that to be something that was achievable for me, and it completely made me change my lifestyle. I think, because as opposed to something that was a hobby and I was doing alongside, like maybe teaching PTs, and I really love boxing, so I'm really passionate about that being part of my life and everything like that. But I never expected to be able to be at a level that I kind of always looked up to, and kind of when I was growing up, I just never saw sport as something that would be a possibility for me, just doing the academic stuff and everything. So I think then I started really pushing to achieve. I don't have very much time. I'm getting older. I don't want to be to look back and be like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, and I think that kind of made me really take steps to be really decisive and try and achieve and grab hold of things, as opposed to just be a bystander. And
you saw a lot of that in just experimentation, right? Just trying things and having the courage to try, and knowing that there's a very high possibility you could fail.
Exactly. So a lot of people are very especially in amateur boxing, people are very or in pro boxing, people are very into the don't lose, like Floyd Mayweather is kind of got this incredible career, but he's very much like made it that if you lose, then, whereas back in the day, people used to lose all the time, which just wasn't that big a deal.
But like UFC is a bit more like that.
Yeah. So but with my amateur career, I always just took fights. I never kind of shied away from, if someone was better than me, no problem. If I flew over to New Zealand to try and get on their team, like I was always just trying to like put myself in a position where I could get as much experience as possible. If I could win, then it would change everything for me. And eventually that happened so I went over to New Zealand. I went to the World Championships. I did all these things and I beat people that people didn't expect. And then I, won the English title, which is a huge deal, like very competitive. And I guess if I hadn't have, I probably lost about a third of my amateur fights and won about 2/3. But I've always like been in positions where maybe I'm not quite there yet, but I still wanted to do it. And then
there's so many things I want to talk about with you, because when you talk, I'm like, all these different things were so amazing to think about. Like, so you lost all those fights, a third of the fights.
Yeah.
Like, as you say, most people would be scared to lose those fights.
Yeah.
I think it would ruin their career, which means that their version of success is kind of a little bit maybe deluded. Delusions of grandeur, right? You've got to go in, do the hard work. Again, relating this back to work.
Yeah.
By doing those fights, clearly you went into those to learn more than anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're willing to take any fight. That's what I'm hearing. Like,
absolutely. And it wasn't like I like lost dramatically. So there's a girl, there's a few different really high level boxers now who are kind of smashing it and won all these Olympic medals and things like that. And then when I fought them, I lost 3-2. So half the judges basically thought I won and half didn't. So it wasn't like it was this big, huge gap. I was neck and neck with these girls who were being really successul. So for me, I'd much rather be in the ring, see what they're all about, see where I'm at, and then be like, that's given me the confidence to be like, you know what? Why should I not be doing what they're doing? Okay, fine. I don't have the backing or this or that at that point. But
so it sounds like you were trying to feel out for your own confidence, like where you were and where you could, so you wanted to have that self-belief in some respects. But would you also kind of say, when you did lose, or even if you didn't lose, that person did this style of thing?
Definitely. I've never ever had a fight and not been devastated afterwards. Even if I win, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was terrible. Why didn't I do this? Like, even when I win, I'm like, I tear what I've done apart, because I'm like, that's the thing about boxing, is that there's always ways to improve.
Yeah, but that's the thing about everything in life.
I know, yeah.
So this is it. Like, I wanted to talk framing around what makes Onyx very good as well. And obviously, in my opinion, we have these behavioral kind of pillars that we talk about to make it simplified. And if you nail those things, things around it tend to happen.
Yeah.
So resilience, humility, accountability. So we're kind of framing the discussion around those things, in my opinion. And I guess what we're talking about right now is the humility, right? The humility to learn and to not believe that you're the finished article.
Yeah.
But to really embody that. I think a lot of people say, oh, no, I am humble. I don't speak about my achievements. But it's like false humility. Real humility, you have to live it, right? You have to go in and be prepared to fail and learn. And of course, there's people better than you, but you're striving to be. So that's what, you've seem to never had that problem. And why is that? So when you say you're competitive because you believe you can be the best, but at the same time, that's the conflict a little bit, right?
Yeah.
In some respects, you've got to believe you can be the best, which is quite arrogant in a way.
I know,
but then at the same time, it's very humble to go in and learn and
Yeah.
be prepared to lose so you can learn and be the best.
Yeah, I think it's that the reason that I feel like I can succeed is because I've been in the ring with some extremely good people.
No, it's the behavior in the bit to begin with. So I'm going back like your whole life, like mindset. This is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You clearly have that like duality, which I think you need, which is why I like talking about this humble thing.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean the absence of like confidence.
Yeah.
It just means the ability to want to go in and learn.
There's so, I think it's very difficult to kind of, it's almost like that, as you say, they contradict each other. So it's very difficult to kind of find a way that's like, but that's why it's so compelling, because you're like, I want to win, I want to be the best, I want to be the greatest and achieve everything I want to win.
But there's no shortcuts.
Like, exactly.
And you need to work hard.
I'm rubbish at this, or I need to get better at this, or like, why didn't I do this? And like,
so that kind of tearing yourself apart thing, again, I relate that back to critiquing a project or whatever you've done. You say, look, how could we have done that better? So the first thing to do is you've got to get other people. You can't do it yourself necessarily as well. You can do it as well, but not exclusively, to say what let's pick on every little thing. What did I do wrong? Not because I'm a bad person, but because I just want to really know so I can improve it. And you're obviously that's what you're all about, right? You rip yourself to shreds. But do you find other people around you almost not wanting to tell you things to kind of stoke that? Or
possibly, but I'm always like, no, I think a lot of the time people who aren't, but my coach and coaches are like, oh yeah, you did that wrong, and I'm like, I just prefer when people just say it straight,
because you want to be the best. That's one thing. It could get misconstrued because you're just beating yourself up, maybe, and you're like, well, hang on, no, I want to be the best, and I need to know every little thing I've done wrong. So I'm getting at like feedback is such a crucial part of being a high performer in anything as well.
Definitely.
And if you embrace it, sounds like you crave it rather than just don't mind it, right?
Absolutely, because I want to. But the thing is that on the other side, it's like I almost know what they're going to say. So I think when you know yourself really well, you know, and that's why when I win fights, I'm like, I'm not really very happy with that, because I know in a different situation, the things that I did wrong could put me in a position where I would lose. And so if I do lose, then I feel like these are the things that I knew about myself that I need to improve. These are the things that let me down. Like, why did I allow that to happen, type thing, you know? So I feel like you know yourself already. And when people give you feedback, you're like, yeah, exactly. That's what I think. So it kind of like, And
then you'll go away and work on something very specific to adjust those things.
That's the thing. I think that's where feedback's really important, is that constructive feedback to help you improve the things that you're not so good at, because otherwise, if you're really good at it, you would be doing it. So you need people who are around you who are like, you know, they know you know how you perform, and then they're like, if you did, because you can't be like, oh, if you threw your jab more, or I don't know in financial talk what you would do, but
there's loads of things.
If you did that more, then you would like be better at that, and you're like, yes, I know, but you don't do that because it's not in your style. So therefore, if they're like, okay, well, maybe you need to always, like, every time you throw a jab. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of get into the habit of doing that. So then you're like building on something you're already doing. So
you're creating like processes as well for yourself.
Exactly, yeah. In order to get better at the things that you're maybe weaker at.
So I love all this. I could talk about this for hours. So it's like one of those things where you're saying like, okay, so we've identified this, I don't know, the obstacle, let's call it. Yeah. My objective obstacle is like I'm weak on my jab or whatever, or I'm not quick enough on the jab.
Yeah.
So we need to go through a bit of a process here to experiment on how we overcome that. Yeah. So you'll say, okay, well, we're going to try and maybe every time you do this, you're going to instinctively think, throw the jab. So is it about for you, when you do these kind of experiments to overcome these obstacles, you need to keep it really simple? Is there an element of that?
It's more that I think that you have to understand that there's other people that are able to support you and have skills that you don't have to help you improve the things that you're not good at. You know, like, I know that I'm hardworking. I know that I'm extremely fit. I know that, like, I'm aggressive. But when
you're talking about the minutiae,
yes, I need someone else who's like.
So they'll say, okay, you need to, and then. But what I'm saying is, how do you like to consume that?
I see.
To implement that, to overcome it. You know.
Yeah, I guess just practice.
Yeah, so you practice something specific.
Yeah.
Do you like to keep that simple? Like.
Yeah.
I was kind of putting words in your mouth a little bit then, but
keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
No, but it's just because I found that as well. Like even this, like when I'm trying to manage people and trying to get what I believe is world-class like mentalities. Yeah. It's really hard to say, just be amazing at this. It's like, no, okay, let's keep it simple. Like behaviorally, just get the foundations really correct.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why I came up with these like resilience, humility, accountability, because it's just like, if you have those three things, that everything else will flow from it.
Definitely, yeah.
But there's so many things around that. Like extreme ownership is a kind of popular thing in business.
Yeah.
Well, there's this guy. Let's not go into it, but he wrote a book called Extreme Ownership, and it really resonated with a lot of people, a lot of business leaders. And it's just one of those things. It's like, I know you can't control the rain outside, but you can control your response or your planning for if there was possibly rain, as an example. Yeah. Everything you can be accountable for if you have that mentality. Yeah. And then if you are really craving the feedback to say, what could I possibly have done differently? That obsessiveness to be perfect, knowing you never will be perfect. It's the only way you're going to be the best at what you do.
Definitely. It's like you're always looking for the next thing to kind of improve on. Yeah. And I think, if someone gives you too many things to think about, it's very difficult because you get sidetracked. So you just need a couple of things, work on those. Yeah. And then after you've worked on those,
you work on the next thing.
Yeah.
No. What I think people would counter to this type of talk is like, but it sounds like you're never happy, sounds like you're never satisfied. Yeah. So what is your counter to that? And there's no real right answer to that.
For me, it's a process. So you have to enjoy what you do. Yeah. And yes, and I think that's if you're kind of not, if you're an addictive person, if you're a competitive person, like all of these sorts of things, that you need to keep having things to work towards. So if you achieve, then you probably wouldn't be that happy because you wouldn't have something to be like working towards. Yeah. So I don't think it's a negative thing to be working towards something. No. And I think that it just simplifies things and it helps you kind of have a process to work towards stuff. But I agree, it is like a never ending sort of process where you're like, oh, but once I get to that, I still need to get to that and everything. But it's just that, I mean, for me, I really love what I do. So the process is the fun part, you know, as well.
100%. Just being the best version of you is the feeling.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to explain it to some people because they're saying, but then why? But then why? But then why?
Yeah.
And have you ever heard that fable?
Yeah. No.
There's a fable where it's like a fisherman is catching fish, catch a couple of fish a day.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, a businessman comes along and tries his fish. He says, oh, it's amazing. You should do more of this. And he's like, but why?
Yeah.
Like, I like my life. I chill out. I do this and that. I go see my family all the time.
Yeah.
And then it progresses to like, in the conversation, like, yeah, but if you scale up and buy 6 boats and then you can scale up to 1,000 boats and you can do this with your business and He's like, but why? And eventually it comes down to, because then you can be really rich and you can just live a chilled life on the beach.
Yeah.
So I'm already doing that.
Yeah.
I get that. But it also, I don't get it because it's like, but I don't crave to lie on a beach and just do nothing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of for you as well, no?
Definitely. As I said, it's all about the experience, like going and working towards a fight and kind of going for those sprints and getting up and, you know,
you like doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoy it. So I think before I used to absolutely, I keep talking about sprints, but I absolutely hate doing track work. It's like the worst thing in the entire planet. I don't know who invented a track, but
have you done track life Battersea?
Yes, it's really good.
I've been doing that recently.
It's really fun,
murderous.
Isn't it? Yeah, but it's like good to do it with other people.
Yeah.
But I just decided to change my mentality and be like, enjoy the process. So now whenever I go to track, I'm like, enjoy the process. And even though I don't quite believe it, it does help a bit because it's like, you know, in 10 years I won't be able to do this. I won't be going and doing track work. So
I was going to ask you that. What do you do with your life in your mind? Or you're just not really thinking about it once your body is kind of failing you a little bit?
I'd like to have a gym one day.
But do you think you'll be able to translate that mentality to something else?
Hopefully. I think so, because I think that's like kind of how I always am. Like when I was a journalist, I was like really wanted to like, I'd always like try and get really good stories or like, you know, trying to chase random things and like try and, you know, be the best at doing what I was doing there. And, you know, I guess it's like, that's how I am generally. So yeah. Well, not to say that I'll succeed, but I will try.
But again, exactly. That's what it's all about. We definitely talked about humility and accountability. The resilience thing, like that, I think is where, well, I think you shine at all of those, but I think resilience, like you're particularly willing to take pain and go again and go again. Where does that come from? Or do you think you can learn it? Or do you think it's just
for me, nothing worth, you know, getting comes easily, you know, and I just feel like I achieve things by just working harder than everyone else. And you know, there might be people who are more talented than me. There might be people who are maybe younger or in a better position in terms of like, you know, they might be on Team GB. I don't know, like there might be loads of different things that somebody else have. But for me, I know that I can get up and do hill sprints when no one else does. Like when I was in New Zealand, for example, like the baby keeps waking up in the middle of the night. So I was like, oh, whatever, we may as well use this time wisely. So put the baby in the pram and like go and do hill sprints at like 3 a.m. and stuff like that.
Wow.
Like I'll do stuff that people won't do. And I put myself in positions that people don't, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But unless I'm willing to like really work for something,
so what I'm thinking there is like you know there's loads of things out of your control, but there's the things you can control, you will control.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's your mentality, right? If you do all these things and you still lose, well, what else could you have done, right?
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And I think like that sometimes I just, because I don't know, when I was doing this competition in New Zealand, one girl didn't make weight, and like no disrespect to her, because like you don't know someone's story, you don't know what's going on with them, so like I don't, but for me, I just, that's one thing that you can control. Like I just feel like, how can you know, if you can't control your fitness, if you can't control your weight, you can't control the other person, but you can control everything about you. And I think like you should be able to be proud of the things that you've done, and like never be like, oh, I didn't get up that morning to do that, so now I've got that confidence issue where I should have got up and it's playing on my mind.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be the case.
And you won't like kind of rest until you rectified it, I think.
Yeah. How about you? For you, what's
the resilience thing?
Yeah.
As you said, I think if it kind of comes intertwined with the other two philosophies, it's like if you believe that you're not the finished article, and there's things you want to achieve and you're accountable for everything you're saying now, then you have no excuse but to keep going. So that's the kind of, let's say, like, nice part about it. It's like, okay, well, I'm just working really hard. The other side of resilience for me is when you get knocked down, right? And failure. And I think if I'm being honest, I learned resilience, and I learned resilience from failing.
Okay.
And then thinking, do you know what? If this is the worst, then actually I can live with that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep trying and pushing things, but equally, I'm also going to be able to bounce back.
Yeah.
Because we always used to say this, me and my dad, about, well, worst case, I'll just go to New Zealand, actually. I'll just go and live in New Zealand in a hut.
Yeah.
Because I think I could. Like, I could just sit in a hut and be like, do you know what?
I can see you doing that, to be honest.
So that's
in fact, leave this.
But that's the point. If you're not afraid of failure anymore, you get up and you go again. And like, so in the early days of Onyx, I mean, I've had plenty of things, but early days of Onyx, really, really early days, we had a catastrophic operational failure.
Yeah.
So I'd made all this money in the first 3 months of the year, all wiped out.
Yeah.
Luckily, Omar had started as well, and he was able to, we were afloat.
Yeah.
But you know, it was stressful. But that's the thing. It's like, what type of stressful? The stress for me was, well, actually, like, I've let people down. Yeah. I need to come back from this, and I'm in a leadership role where this is going to define the business. Because if I can't operate in a way in the darkest of times and show people how you operate in those times, then how do I expect them to? Yeah. So what was very important to me was that I just stand up and be accountable, first of all, and just accept everything. Yeah. And then work my ass off until it's back. Yeah. So it's not so much like a guilt thing. It's just more of like a responsibility and duty thing. And then I, started reading a lot around that time to kind of self-therapize, if you like self-therapeutic type stuff. Yeah. And that's what got me into a bit more formal version of Stoicism. Yeah. And there's a book called Obstacles the Way. And that book was awesome because all these like examples in real life of people who've had like catastrophic circumstances, but not only have they come back from it, they made it work for them. Yeah. So I look back at that now and go, that's made the business. As in, I can't, obviously, Omar's fantastic and amazing. He's done so many great things. This was more the input I've had from the business has kind of come from those failures. Okay. And that's, I look back at that moment as like, if you can like the way I was able to respond to that, or at least try to respond to that, that at least people will know what I'm all about. And then if you're with me, you know what this company is all about, and then we can grow from there. And
also then I guess with that, you're like, kind of at that point, loads of people would just be like, do you know what? We tried it didn't work out. And then, maybe we could file for bankruptcy. I don't know. They'd find a way around it. Right. Whereas
because they don't want to take responsibility.
Yeah. If you work through it, then it's like, because there's always ways to find excuses and be like, we could have just, we tried it. 1 in 10 business don't work. Blah blah. All these different things that people try and find things. But if you've actually worked through that, that's incredible.
Well, and
so inspiring.
I think the other thing was it was important to me not to fail in the right way. Yeah. So it's like you. It's like, look, I can fail. Yeah. But I'm not going to fail by quitting. And I'm not going to fail by someone else telling me I can't do it. Yeah. So there was not great people around me at that point, other than Omar. And the kind of couple of people we started the business with. So there was a lot of those pressures as well. Like, people aren't great when it comes to money and greed. So, and also, the industry is a very competitive place, and it's just a thing. No one, especially there's a lot of men in this industry, a lot of like competitive men, they don't want to see you succeed at all. So, and even now, it's like, I heard this guy, I fucking hate Greg Newman. It's like, I don't even know who this guy is. I've never even met him. But that's the thing. It's like, I get it. It's like, if you're competitive and it's annoying, you don't want to see someone be successful because you should be successful. Yeah. Now, me and you would turn around and say, okay, well, work hard, learn from what I am doing well then, or what someone else is doing well, and then implement that in your life. And then once you're better than me, then you can turn around and say, you know what I mean? Absolutely. But don't just like point fingers and like, so I don't know. I don't think that really answered the question that much in terms of like how you get resilience, because it's actually the hardest one to define. You need to find something within you that drives you, I guess is what I'm saying. Definitely
it has to be worth it. Like, you have to see the end, look forward to see something that you want to try and achieve regardless of what happened. But it's really depressing.
It is. But also, do you ever like kind of wallow in that though a little bit? And not wallow is the wrong word, but like when people think it's depressing, I'm like, bring it on.
Because then you're like, I always think like every emotion is just as valid as the other emotions. Right. And like, I know people like talk about this and whatever, but it's like, when you can't really be happy if you haven't been sad. Do you know what I mean? You know how like like when I win everything in the world and I'm like the best in the world, I'd be like, yeah, but I know what it's like to, and it will like really mean so much to me because I'll have known what it's like to not be the best and not achieve anything. And then I'd be like, you know, it's like you have to have all these different things in order to appreciate
100%
the success.
The other side to this, which does kind of play on from the resilience thing as well, is having a kid. Right. Oh, yeah. So you're in the midst of this like professional journey, which obviously you're still on, right? And you're still going to keep going.
Yeah.
And then you went to New Zealand for training camps and also the championship itself, New Zealand Championship. Yeah. And you had to bring along your newborn, right?
I did, yeah.
And I think in the first place, like again, talking about what everything we were talking about, wanting to still do that and able to still do that, knowing you had this excuse, effectively, the best excuse in the world. I've got a kid, like I've got someone more important to me that I need to look after. But you know, you did it anyway, right? You took on that responsibility, and you know, that must have been amazing and incredibly tough at the same time.
Yeah.
And I mean, tell us about that.
I think the fact that I had the opportunity to go over there was like massive thanks to you guys, because unless people believe in you, you can't, it's very difficult to believe in yourself if you don't have people supporting you. So I wouldn't have even been able to think about trying to chase my dreams without you guys. It meant everything to me. So I think having that belief and that confidence made me feel like, yes, there are like reasons why not to. Yes, I've got a baby. Yes, like it's over the other side of the world, but like I have this opportunity. Like I can grab it and go and run with it and just really try now. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And then, but the other thing is like there are all these things that you could have said could go wrong, but actually if you just jump in, and as long as you're safe, right? And
and the baby's happy.
And the baby's happy. yeah. Things will work around you. They will. You'll find a way around these things. They will
sometimes, and they won't sometimes. So what I didn't realize about, so it was fantastic going and like, so when I got there, I fought in this tournament and I won that, and that was amazing. And then I had a couple of months where I was like trying to balance looking after the baby and training, and that was much harder than I thought. So even though you're like, yeah, just go for it, like whatever, there's obstacles in the way. I was like, I haven't slept for many weeks.
There's a physical obstacle in my way now.
He's sick, so I can't train. Like it's it didn't work out how I thought it would work out, but you know, I was in a training camp with a world champion, and I had amazing rounds with her and really competitive rounds and stuff like that. That was wicked because they had in their gym, so the guy who runs the gym, he has like 4 kids. They've got a dog. Mia, who I was sparring, has like 5 kids herself. So everyone was there with all their kids, their dogs, and like blah blah. Everyone was like playing on the floor. The dog was like, you know, had like the baby had the hands in the mouth of the dog. It was just really gross, but whatever. And it was just like loads of people there in that situation, you know, kind of just getting on with it. And I think
getting on with, that's what I'm getting at, right?
Just get on with
you
it.
Work around it. Like I really wanted to play this video that's on your Instagram. That kind of encapsulates it.
Honestly, he just eats everything. But I think,
but he's like physically in the gym, like while you're there. So even when we've trained a couple of times, like he just comes over to you and grabs your leg. And it's so funny. He's literally
he's always
growing
trying to
up.
climb stuff.
Right. Your husband is a boxer as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the chances of him not being a boxer now.
I know, but I don't want anyone to punch him. It would make me really upset. Yeah. But I think that's the thing, is that you feel this incredible guilt. You know, that, oh, is it okay that he's in the gym? Is it clean enough? Like, I don't know.
But you can see from this video, everyone's very happy with it. Like, it's nice. It's just nice, and to help out in that way, it's the least you can do, right? And I think everyone, that's a good one.
Really need to work on his arm strength.
Yeah. I think the way I see it, because I know the guys around you, or at least most of them, like Johnny there, Johnny Boy. It's a nice part of it, to be honest. It makes it more wholesome, and realize this is like a life pursuit, not just a random exercise session.
Definitely, and it's you know, people around me, that's the thing. I think it's all well and good to come in and be like, oh, you know, I can achieve anything, and I just want to like work hard and like pick myself up when I've like fallen down or whatever. And then you're like, it's about the people around you. So, you know, yes, you can do all of those things, but unless you are like, have incredible people like you, like my team, but and my husband, but you know, unless you have those people, you can't do any of these things, because you know, you need support and help and things like that. So and you need people to be like, oh, your jab's terrible, or like, no, keep going, you know, whatever it is, like you need that kind of around you too. So yeah, it's definitely about having the people in your team.
So I think there's so many amazing things to take away from everything you've been saying. But I think one thing I just want to touch on before we finish was when you actually embraced a sports psychologist.
Yes.
So you already had these kind of core ingredients that we're talking about clearly, but did that really help things, frame things? And
it's interesting because I think sports and business psychologists are really like they kind of basically talk about the same stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
They're kind of basically the same thing. They're just different avenues, but that helped me a lot because I think it's all mental. Like anyone can be good at boxing or business or like this or that probably, but it's your mind and your confidence and the decisions you make and how you behave. Those are the things that make the difference between being successful and not being successful. And I think knowing yourself and knowing your for example, like your self-sabotage or your you get, if something impacts you like mentally, that kind of transfers into like loads of behavioral things. So for example, you'll be like, oh, I feel a bit ill, or like, oh, I'm really tired, or all these things. You're not. It's just your mind being like, it's trying to protect you from really just embracing it and being like, yeah, this is rubbish, but whatever.
So is that the main thing?
I think just understanding yourself and understanding that kind of the ways that you're, you can block yourself from being, and then we can see behaviors and be like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. And then you can be like, it's cool, move on, like, for example, with a fight, I think one of the things someone said to me that has really stuck with me is that what's the worst that can happen? Like we're talking about it and you're like, I lose. It's not that deep. I mean, obviously, unless you like injure yourself, whatever. But yes, it's embarrassing. Yes, you let people down. Yes, it's not getting you to where you want to get to. All of these things, but at the end of the day, you just lose. Like you can do another fight and then win.
And you can lead your own narrative.
Yeah.
Some people got amazing stories where you think, yeah, but they did that or they failed at this. Yeah. And you don't even see them as failures. Yeah. It's part of their journey.
Yeah. And I think also just, especially with the world that we live in with Instagram and everything like that, everyone looks so successful and like beautiful and polished. And you see all these people in the gym, like winning all their fights and all these things. And you're like, that's incredible. I want to do that. But then the reality of it is that they're like, oh, I don't know. Whenever you talk to people, there's always loads of other things going on in their lives, like there is with everybody. And so, sometimes you just have to be honest and be like, I didn't make that, but I will make that. And then people can see your path. And
I love it. It's the thing I respect the most, and I respect you a great deal, and you're doing amazing things, and you've got a big career ahead of you still, right? You've got loads ahead.
Yeah, it's thanks to you, because unless you have people supporting you, as I said, that's what makes the difference, because it makes you take yourself seriously and it makes you accountable, absolutely. Yeah, but it means everything to me, you guys, and supporting me in something like this. I don't have any words. So
thank you so much for coming on, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really fun.
Thank you, listeners out there. I hope you enjoyed that. I really did myself. And we'll be back next week for more of the market type stuff. So thanks for listening.